Stanislaus Cannery in Modesto for very briefly during the season. And that would have been in the same years when I was going to school there. Let's see, I went from there, I went to San Francisco State, and I worked, I had to work somewhere, but I can't think of it right now.
How did you commute over to San Francisco State?
Just drove over.
Did you have a car when you were in Modesto?
Well, that's a good question. It was Paul's car that he had before he joined the service, and it was just sitting there. Mother wasn't using it, and so somewhere along the line, either then or a little later, it was agreed. I mean, because I think she was making the payment.
She was taking the payment.
Yeah, she was.
No, it really wasn't my car when you come right down.
Yeah,
Well,
so-
I mean, it was when I was here.
So
Before I went in the Air Force, so yeah.
it was a '57 Ford, and that was a good car.
47.
I'm sorry, 47.
47 Ford. Yeah, it was a nice car. Probably one of my favorite cars when I was a kid.
So that's what you drove down to Modesto
Yeah,
in?
well, a lot of the time down there I had no car because I went with other people, but it worked out that it was, Mother really didn't want it. She didn't want to drive or anything, and somewhere along the line, either then or when I got drafted and when I was in the Army, I paid her for the car a couple $100 or whatever it was worth, and it became mine at that point. Let's see, well, and I had that for quite some time. It was a good car.
Then San Francisco State, how did you get there? Bus or?
No, I drove over there.
Oh.
It was 25 cents to go across the bridge, 25 cents each way. And I had one rider with me who paid the 25 cents.
Wow.
Did they charge both ways then?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and well, I only went there one semester before I got drafted, and but I quit. The reason I got drafted is because I was in the Air Force ROTC at San Francisco State, but I didn't like it. It just didn't make much sense, and I just thought the only reason for being in the ROTC was to avoid the draft, and I just thought, you know, at that time I was 19, and I thought they're going to get me, and just let it happen. And so I quit school, and I got a job over at. You were asking about jobs. I got a job at McDonald's nursery. I don't know, helping a guy plant stuff, or I don't know what I was doing. And I worked there until the day that I got drafted. And like I say, I was 19 years old. It was March 13th, 1953, Friday the 13th that I got drafted.
And then you went to the service, and then when you came out, where did you work?
Then when I came out, I went back to San Francisco State to finish, and I got a job across the street from, well, it was on Broadway, within a used car lot. He needed somebody to wash off the cars every day, 6 days a week. Yeah, that was a good job too. And somewhere along the line there, after Paul got out of the service, I worked at Steers Drugstore delivering. Well, and I only worked on Sundays. But
Did you work at the same time he did?
no, I think by that time you were.
Let's see, I'm trying to remember. I was out of the service when you had that job, right?
Yeah, because I knew about it because you had it first.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Art
So-
Johnson, you got a job through, because it was Art Johnson.
Yeah, Johnson.
And did,
What was I doing then?
what was it, what was the year?
Well, I got out in '54, and then,
Well, I got
when
out-
did what was?
I got out in '55, so
Yeah,
this would.
I don't,
I watched cars there for. Oh, wait a minute. I was getting around. I was either married or close to being married when I worked at Steers. So we're talking about '56. So that would. And you had been married already.
Yeah, 56. I was going to college, and I had a job. I did work for a while.
You were, when we were going together, you worked at
Steers.
Steers.
Huh?
When we were dating, you
Yeah,
were working at
yeah.
Steers.
Yeah.
I was wondering, when did Dave Gaynor work there? Did you remember a Dave
No, I
Gaynor?
don't even remember. I know he said he was there, but I
Yeah.
don't remember seeing him there.
That's from somebody from our church that we
Yeah.
discovered worked
No,
at
but I only
Steers.
worked Sundays, so I
Oh,
wouldn't have
okay.
seen a lot of people there.
And then after that,
Oh, an interesting thing always happened, it happened to you too, I'm sure, at Steers. They had a delivery, and there were some people who liked to imbibe a little bit, and they wanted to get booze of some kind, and they would call up and say, oh, hey, send me a bottle of aspirin and some other drugstore stuff. And by the way, give me a fifth of whiskey too. You know? And one time I showed up there and I'd forgotten the other miscellaneous. I'd forgotten the whiskey. I gave him this bag that had this I don't know, aspirin and stuff. What? Where's the rest of the order? Oh, the guy blew his cork. He was needing a drink.
so after Steers and you got married, where were you working when you got married?
I wasn't working, I didn't have a job, but those times were so good, you could shuffle on down to somewhere, and I mean, there were jobs available, and I interviewed for 2 or 3 things that I didn't take. I was offered, a couple of them. I just was looking for something better, and so I did work for 2 weeks at at the Southern Pacific Railroad. Well, maybe it's a couple of months. It's supposed to be 2 weeks, and then I was just lugging mail bags around, and somebody said, "Who can type?" So I said, "Yeah, I can type." So they sent me out to the San Leandro little office there. They needed somebody that could type. I got out there, and the guy who was running the thing said, "Gee, you're slow." And then I said, "Hey, I told him I could type. I didn't say I was a regular typist. I mean, I'm not making any mistakes. But this stuff was typed right."
Yeah.
And they kept me on there for a while. I could have stayed there even, but I quit that right before I got married. And I had irons in the fire, so my father-in-law never knew that I didn't have a job at that time. He would have been upset probably. Thinking, what's this, another bum marrying one of my daughters?
So then from there, then where did you go for your job?
The first job that I got right after that was Moore Dry Dock. And that only lasted about 5 months. Then got a job at General Motors Acceptance, which was, that was a good job, I think. I stayed there 4.5 years. Probably stayed there longer than I should, but I thought I liked the finance business. But they kept giving me raises and so on.
You had some funny stories from that job, didn't you?
Yeah, because part of the work I had to do is go repossess cars, and people wouldn't give you their car, they'd hide it, there's a whole bunch of stories. One time I repossessed a car and left it in a street in San Francisco instead of putting it in a lot, and I figured I'd just come back the next day with somebody to drive it. Well, somebody stole it, and I called the police over there, and at the end of that day, they called GMAC office and said the car had been found. It's in the middle of one of these main intersections with the transmission out of it, busted. And I don't know. As I remember, that particular car had an ignition switch that you could turn the key, and if you wanted to, you could pull the key out, and the switch could still be activated, and so anybody could have started it. It's pretty stupid of me to leave it out like that, but what are you gonna do?
Didn't you say one time that this big, heavy-duty religious king or something in
Oh,
Oakland.
yeah, that was,
You had to repossess his car?
his paperwork said, His Grace King, whatever his first name is, Narcissus, with a big old long title. And you had to go up to he lived, I think, in Piedmont, if I remember right. You had to go up and you couldn't go to the front door. You had to go up to the tradesman's entrance. And no, I didn't repossess his car, but he was always in financial trouble, and he was acting like he was a big shot. But he had a new car all the time.
He's kind of like the rock star
Yeah,
of that era.
There was a guy who was legally blind who bought a car, and we had to find out whether, because he didn't make the payments, and we had trouble with him. I don't know how he could even see.
Actually, Kathy, my boss Kathy, she bought a car,
Yeah.
but she never drove it, of course.
Let's turn that fan, doesn't it get kind of
Yeah.
stuffy in here?
You can get up and go turn around. Have you ever gone into business for yourself?
No, I don't think so. I mean, other than just some small scale. No, it would have been nice, but I never did.
Actually, we didn't talk about the job that you finally retired from.
Oh, well, let's see. If real quickly, I went from GMAC to working for a bank, which was at that time was called United California Bank. These banks have changed names
Yeah.
so often, I don't even know what it is
It's,
now.
because I go to that to make a deposit for a friend. Union Bank? I think it's Union Bank now.
Could be,
Yeah.
but I was working inside there, and I thought that I liked the banking business, but I was getting soured on it, and I found out, I tried to get a raise, and my boss wasn't, he didn't get as much money as my friend who was a truck driver. So I applied for a job at Carnation Company driving a truck, and I made more money than my boss over there at the bank, who was a really, really sharp guy, this boss. He was, he was really good. So I got the bank. Hey, you want to get me a...
I forgot.
Anyway, I worked at Carnation for 30 years, I don't know. Carnation Plan, they were bought out by Foster Farms, and it was a good job. Pay was okay, and I was never out of work 1 minute from the day when I got that first job there, right after I was married. So that part of it is a good thing, I think.
You had to get up awful early in the morning,
Yeah, but I'm a morning person anyway.
so it worked out okay.
Yeah, so I
Went to bed early and got up early,
yeah.
which you still do.
Yeah.
So that was your last job, and you retired from that job.
Yeah, well, I got another job after I retired, working at a picture frame place over there at the mall, deck the walls. It was okay, but I really couldn't stand up that long. Really had to quit that because my back got kind of messed up working for Carnation.
Is there another career that you wished you had pursued instead of the path you did choose?
I wish I would have been a lion tamer. I think that was. I think that would be good.
Might have been a short life.
I'm not. Well, yeah. If I could have been, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a cartoonist, and if I would have tried to pursue that, maybe not, but that's not a real lucrative thing either, unless you're just hit it right. But I would have enjoyed that, I think. I would have liked to have been a writer, but that's really involved to learn all the fundamentals and everything. Yeah.
But those are kind of things you're pursuing now.
Well, Yeah,
as a
I've been
leisure.
painting, I wouldn't mind if I could make a living painting, but I mean, this is very, very hard to do.
If you could go back and change the way you handled your own finances, what would you do differently and why?
I wouldn't do anything differently. Well, this is always my philosophy. You get your paycheck, what are the bills? You pay the bills, what's left over, and you can spend it. I mean, there really wasn't a lot to finagle with, and so that's, I don't know, maybe I would have, knowing what I know now about real estate values, I might have gotten some part-time, well, I did have part-time jobs from time to time, even when I was working at Carnation, but I might have gotten some kind of job and earned the money to make a real estate investment that would have gone up over the years, but we don't know those things.
Yeah, but I remember your grandmother saying the same thing. If she had bought property out in
Yeah,
Fruitvale District when it was available, and I think that's one of the things that we just, hindsight, because we know
Yeah.
what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
at what age did you plan to retire? So you would pretty much work to the regular.
Yeah, I always thought, oh boy, if I could retire at 55, that would be
Yeah.
great. Because it was okay with the Teamsters Union, but you couldn't really get any money. And you couldn't get Social Security. It turned out I was about 60 when I retired with a disability.
And if you are retired, which you are, do you feel now that the arrangements you made were adequate to sustain your lifestyle?
They're adequate, but they're not